Funny stories in English. Two old guys were pushing their carts around Walmart when they accidentally crashed into each other. "Sorry about that," said the first old man. "I'm just a little distracted. I'm looking for my wife." "Funny," said the second. "I'm looking for mine too. Can't find her anywhere and I'm starting to get worried." The first guy said, "Hey, maybe we can help each other. What does your wife look like?" The second smiled and said, "Well, she's 27, tall, red hair, blue eyes, long legs, big smile, wearing short shorts." The first old man paused and said, "You know what? Forget mine. Let's focus on finding yours." My girlfriend and I were having fun when she said, "Make love to me like in the movies." Things got steamy. Then I suddenly froze. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Hush, baby, don't move. I saw this online. It's called buffering." I told my husband I'd be home by midnight, and I meant it. But margaritas don't come with a time limit, so I crept in at 3 a.m., super stealthy, when suddenly the cuckoo clock went off. 3 loud cuckoos, panic mode. So I did what any slightly tipsy genius would do. I cuckooed 9 more times. Problem solved. Midnight achieved. The next morning my husband says, "We need a new cuckoo clock." Me? Huh? Why? Him? Because last night it cuckooed 3 times, hiccuped, giggled, said, "Oh crap," fell off the wall and tried to moon me. Today at lunch, I saw an old man sitting on a park bench, absolutely sobbing. Concerned, I walked over and asked, "Sir, what's wrong?" Through tears, he said, "I have a 22-year-old wife at home. Every morning she rubs my back, makes me pancakes, sausage, fresh fruit, and grinds fresh coffee." I said, "That sounds amazing. So why are you crying?" He continued, "At lunch, she makes me homemade soup and my favorite brownies, then cleans the house and watches sports with me all afternoon." I blinked. "Okay, but why are you crying?" He went on, "For dinner, she prepares a gourmet meal, pours me wine, serves my favorite dessert, and then we make love until the early morning." Now I'm really confused. "So why in the world are you crying?" He looked at me, wiped his nose, and said, "I can't remember where I live." The next day at school, the teacher noticed that little Johnny wasn't in class the day before. She walked over and asked, "Little Johnny, why weren't you at school yesterday?" Little Johnny, looking a bit tired, shrugged and said, "I had bird flu, ma'am." The teacher raised an eyebrow, surprised. "But bird flu is a disease that affects animals, not humans." Little Johnny, without missing a beat, shot back, "Well, ma'am, when was the last time you treated me like a human? You always make me the rooster in the class." A 60-year-old lady was standing next to the railing on a cruise ship. She was using both hands to hold her hat onto her head so it wouldn't blow away. A gentleman approached the lady and said, "Ma'am, I am sorry to bother you, but the wind is blowing your dress up." The lady replied, "Sir, if I take my hands off of my hat, it will blow away." "I understand, ma'am, but you aren't wearing any panties," replied the gentleman. She later looked down, then back up at the gentleman and said, "Sir, anything you see down there is 60 years old, and I bought this hat yesterday." A man had just opened a restaurant, but he couldn't think of a name, so he decided to name it after the third person that walks in. The third person walks in, and the guy asked for her name. She said, "Jill." "Well, Jill, you have nice legs." So the guy named the restaurant Jill's Legs. A week later, a drunk was laying on the sidewalk outside the restaurant when a police officer asked him what he was doing. He replied, "I'm waiting for Jill's legs to open so I can get a bite to eat." Sophia had just gotten married, and being a traditional Italian girl, she was still a virgin. That night, she and her new husband were staying at her mother's house. Nervous and unsure, she turned to her mom. Her mother smiled and reassured her, "Don't worry, Sophia. Luca's a good man. Go upstairs. He'll take care of you." So, up she went. But the moment she entered the room, Luca took off his shirt and revealed a massive hairy chest. Sophia gasped, ran straight back downstairs. Mama, Mama, Luca's got a big hairy chest. Her mother chuckled. Don't worry, Sophia. All good men have hairy chests. Go back upstairs. He'll take good care of you. So up she went again. This time, Luca took off his pants, revealing thick, hairy legs. She didn't hesitate. Back down she ran. Mama, Mama. Luca took off his pants and he's got hairy legs too. Her mom nodded. Don't worry. All good men have hairy legs. Luca's a good man. Go upstairs and he'll take good care of you. So up she went again. When she got up there, Luca took off his socks, and on his left foot, he was missing 3 toes. When Sophia saw this, she ran downstairs. Mama, Mama, Luca's got a 1.5 feet. Stay here and stir the pasta, said her mother. Mama will take very good care of him. Woman, do you drink beer? Man, yeah. Woman, how many beers a day? Man, usually about 3. Woman, and how much do you pay per beer? Man, about $5, tip included. Woman, and how long have you been drinking, man? Man, around 20 years, give or take. Woman, so $5 per beer times 3 beers a day equals $15 a day. That's about $450 a month, $5,400 a year. Over 20 years, that's $108,000. And that's without even factoring in inflation or interest. Man, sounds about right. Woman, do you realize that if you hadn't spent all that money on beer, you could have put it into a high-interest savings account, compounded it annually, and by now you could have bought a Ferrari? Man, do you drink beer, woman? Woman, no. Man, then what color is your Ferrari? Three nurses pass away and find themselves at the gates of heaven. St. Peter meets them there and says, Before you enter, I need to hear what kind of nursing work you did. He turns to the first nurse. She says, I worked in the emergency room. I helped save lives every day. Trauma, car crashes, heart attacks. Some patients didn't make it, but I always gave it my all. St. Peter glances at her file, nods, and says, Thank you for your service. Welcome to heaven. He moves to the second nurse. I worked in the operating room, she says. Long hours, tough cases. Sometimes we lost patients on the table, but I always stayed focused and tried to give each person the best chance. St. Peter reviews her file and says, Your dedication is admirable. Please come in. Then he turns to the third nurse. She stands tall and says proudly, I was a case manager for an HMO. I handled thousands of patients over the years. St. Peter raises an eyebrow. He pulls out a thick file, frowns, and then grabs a calculator. He starts punching in numbers, flipping pages, checking notes. This goes on for several minutes. Finally, he looks up with a grin and says, Congratulations. You've been approved for heaven, but only for 3 days a month with a $50 copay and pre-authorization from 2 angels. 2 pretty gals from Canada decide to escape the freezing winter, 40 degrees, ice and snow, and head to sunny Australia for a break. They're relaxing at a beachside club in Perth, soaking up the sun and sipping on cold drinks. 2 local Aussie blokes spot them from across the patio. One nudges the other and says, Hey mate, why don't you go ask those lovely ladies to join us? Rhino says his buddy and strolls over with his best smile. G'day ladies, haven't seen you around here before. Where are you from? One of the women beams and says proudly, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. The guy stares, blinks a few times, then turns around and walks straight back to his friend. Well, his mate asks, are they coming over or should we go join them? His buddy shrugs and says, Forget it, they don't speak English. An 80-year-old man goes in for a checkup. The doctor says, George, you're in amazing shape for your age. How's your mind, your spirit? Are you at peace with the big guy upstairs? George smiles and says, Doc, me and God, we're tight. He even looks out for me at night. I can barely see, but when I get up to go to the bathroom, poof, the light comes on. And when I'm done, poof, The light goes off every time. God's got my back. The doctor is stunned. That's incredible. Later, just to follow up, the doctor calls George's wife. Ethel, he says. George is doing great. But I have to ask. He says God turns the bathroom light on and off for him at night. Is that really true? There's a pause. Then Ethel shrieks, "Oh no, he's peeing in the fridge again." An elderly woman was heartbroken. Her beloved husband Albert had just passed away. She went to the funeral home to see him one last time. As soon as she saw him in the casket, she burst into tears. The mortician gently approached. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. Is something wrong?" Between sobs, she said, "It's just Albert always said he wanted to be buried in a blue suit, but he's wearing black." The mortician nodded sympathetically. "I understand. We usually dress the deceased in black as a default, but I'll see what I can do." The next day, the woman returned to the funeral home for a final visit before the service. The mortician pulled back the curtain, and there was Albert, dressed perfectly in a handsome blue suit. Her face lit up. "Oh, wonderful. He looks just like he wanted. But where did you find such a beautiful blue suit?" The mortician smiled. "Well, after you left yesterday, another gentleman was brought in about your husband's size, and he was wearing a blue suit." "Really?" she asked. "Yes," he said, "but his wife was very upset. She wanted him buried in a traditional black suit." The old woman smiled warmly. "So you were able to make a trade?" The mortician nodded. "Absolutely. After that, it was just a matter of swapping the heads." An old man was sitting peacefully by a quiet pond when out of nowhere a frog hopped up beside him and said, "Kiss me, and I'll turn into a beautiful 25-year-old woman." The man chuckled, picked up the frog gently, and tucked her into his coat pocket. The frog peeked out and asked, "Well, aren't you going to kiss me?" The old man smiled and said, "At 91, I'd rather have a talking frog." A young couple was on a road trip to Las Vegas to get married. Spirits were high and love was in the air. As they drove under the desert sun, the bride-to-be suddenly turned to her fiancé and said, "Before we say I do, I want to be completely honest. I've always been self-conscious because, well, I'm not exactly curvy. If that changes how you feel, I understand." The guy paused, took her hand, and smiled. "Listen," he said, "that doesn't matter to me at all. What we have is about more than appearances." A few miles later, he cleared his throat and said, "Okay, my turn. I should tell you something, too. Below the waist, I'm kind of like a baby, just in case that makes you reconsider." The girl blinked, then shrugged with a grin. "I'm marrying you for your heart, not your baby resemblance." They laughed, rolled into Vegas, and had a beautiful little wedding. That night, they finally saw each other in full. The girl removed her dress just as she said. She was petite. No surprises there. Then the guy stepped out of his suit. She took one look and fainted. When she came to, he asked, "Wait, why did you faint?" "I told you I was like a baby." She stared wide-eyed and whispered, "Yeah, but I didn't think you meant 8 lbs and 21 inches. One afternoon, a woman wandered into a quirky little pet shop. As she browsed, her eyes landed on a beautiful, brightly colored parrot perched in a cage. The sign read, $50. Surprised, she asked the shop owner, "That's a stunning bird. Why so cheap?" The owner gave a slightly awkward smile. "Well, to be honest, this parrot used to live in a brothel. He's perfectly harmless, but sometimes he says things that reflect his past environment." The woman raised an eyebrow but then shrugged. "I've worked in customer service. I've heard it all. I'll take him." She brought the parrot home, set up his cage in the living room, and waited to see what he'd say. The parrot looked around, fluffed his feathers, and said, "New place, new madam." She blinked, then laughed. Well, I guess he wasn't kidding. Later that afternoon, her 2 teenage daughters came home from school. As they walked into the room, the parrot eyed them and squawked, "New place, new madam, new girls." The daughters burst into laughter. "Mom, where did you get this bird?" Before she could respond, her husband walked through the door, briefcase in hand. The parrot leaned forward, studied him, and exclaimed, "New place, new madam, new girls. Hey, Frank, long time no see." Silence. The wife turned slowly to her husband. The daughters stared at him wide-eyed. And the parrot, he just gave a smug little grin and fluffed his feathers. A judge was interviewing a woman regarding her pending divorce and asked, "What are the grounds for your divorce?" She replied, "About 4 acres and a nice little home in the middle of the property with a stream running by." "No," he said. "I mean, what is the foundation of this case?" "It is made of concrete, brick, and mortar," she responded. "I mean," he continued, "what are your relations like?" "I have an aunt and uncle living here in town, and so do my husband's parents." He said, "Do you have a real grudge?" "No," she replied. "We have a 2-car carport and have never really needed one." "Please," he tried again. "Is there any infidelity in your marriage?" "Yes, both my son and daughter have stereo sets. We don't necessarily like the music, but the answer to your question is yes, sir." "Does your husband ever beat you up?" "Yes," she responded. "About twice a week he gets up earlier than I do." Finally, in frustration, the judge asked, "Lady, why do you want a divorce?" "Oh, I don't want a divorce," she replied. "I've never wanted a divorce. My husband does. He said he can't communicate with me." A boss called his secretary one morning and said, "Pack your bags. We're going abroad this week. Please make all the travel arrangements." The secretary, doing her job, immediately called her husband. "Sweetheart, I have to travel for work this week. I'll be going abroad with my boss." Seeing an opportunity, the husband picked up the phone and called his secret girlfriend. "My wife's going to be out of town for a few days. Why don't you come stay with me?" The girlfriend, thrilled, called one of her tutoring students. "No lessons this week, sweetie. I'll be away." The student, now free, called his grandpa excitedly. "Grandpa, my teacher canceled classes. Can I come spend the weekend with you?" Grandpa, happy to hear it, called his secretary. "Cancel my travel plans. My grandson is coming to visit instead." The secretary called her husband again. "Change of plans. My boss canceled the trip. I won't be traveling after all." The husband panicked and quickly called his lover. "My wife's staying home now. Our plans are off." The girlfriend then called her student. "Actually, we're back on for lessons this week." The student, disappointed, called Grandpa. "Sorry, Grandpa. My teacher rescheduled class. I can't come anymore." With a long sigh, Grandpa picked up the phone once more and told his secretary, "Well, never mind what I said earlier. My grandson's not coming. The trip is back on. Please make the arrangements again." Two priests decided to take a much-needed break from their parish duties and booked a tropical getaway to sunny Hawaii. But before the plane even took off, they made a pact. No collars, no black clothes. We're going full tourist mode. Once they landed, they hit a beach shop and loaded up on colorful shirts, floral shorts, flip-flops, straw hats, and sunglasses the size of dinner plates. They looked more like cruise ship mascots than clergymen. The next morning, they strolled along the beach, sipping fruit smoothies and enjoying the sun, completely relaxed and totally incognito. Then suddenly, a stunning blonde in a bikini walked by, flashed a smile, and said, "Good morning, Father. Good morning, Father." They nearly dropped their drinks. How on earth did she know? Determined not to be recognized again, they returned to the shops that afternoon and cranked up the disguise. Neon tank tops, goofy socks with sandals, seashell necklaces, and hats that said, "Aloha, dude." They looked ridiculous and completely unpriest-like. The next day, back on the beach, they strutted confidently, sure their cover was solid. But wouldn't you know it, the same blonde passed by, waved, and said with a grin, "Good morning again, fathers." One of them stood up and said, "All right, we give up. How did you know we were priests?" She chuckled, took off her sunglasses, and said, It's me, Sister Mary, from the convent. You two are terrible at hiding.